Good day, everyone. Steamhawke here, and today I'll be discussing one of the hot topics when it comes to Stalker tanking. Mainly, what's the most effective way to dump your suit power? I get an enormous amount of questions as to why I tend to run Nano Field over Frenzy whenever I'm tanking on my stream, and I wanted to sit down and talk through the pros and cons of each ability, as well as why I personally favor Nano Field. Let's start off by taking a look at each of the abilities. First off, we have Nano Field. Nano Field is a support ability unlocked at level 6 that uses the multi-tap mechanics in Wildstar to deploy a life-stealing aura around the Stalker, and then detonate the field to deal damage and restore health. While active, Nano Field surrounds the Stalker in a circular fashion, extending out 8 meters in all direction, and ticks once per second for minor damage, returning 25% of the damage dealt as life to the Stalker. This field lasts for 5 seconds, or until the ability is used a second time, to instantly collapse the field, dealing moderate damage and returning 25% of the damage dealt via lifesteal. Nano Field costs 20 suit power per tap, and provides a damage mitigation buff to the Stalker for 5 seconds if used from stealth. At Tier 4, the second tap of the skill, used to detonate the field, is free if used within 2 seconds of deploying the field. At Tier 8, the field increases all incoming healing by 8% while active, and detonating the field returns 100% of the damage dealt as life. Next, we have Frenzy. Frenzy is a channeled ability that deals damage every half second over the course of 2.5 seconds, first becoming available at level 21. All damage dealt by Frenzy generates 150% threat, which stacks multiplicatively with your other threat modifiers, such as that from Nanosuit Evasive's passive. Frenzy costs 12 suit power per tick and features a frontal cone-shaped telegraph that extends 6 meters in front of the Stalker and can strike up to 5 targets simultaneously. If used from stealth, this ability applies a small absorption shield to the Stalker that scales off of support power and ability tiering and lasts for 5 seconds. At Tier 4, Frenzy offers the Stalker an additional 12% deflect chance while channeling, and at Tier 8, it applies a stacking debuff to the enemy target that reduces their physical resistance. So as a Stalker tank, you must ask yourself, what are your priorities? This largely depends on the kind of content that you're engaged in, as well as what the needs of both you and your group are. Nano Field offers the ability to replenish your life, allowing you to take a modicum of pressure off of your healers and boosting your ability to sustain yourself throughout fights. Frenzy offers strong defensive and offensive bonuses as you tier it up, and generates more threat. Or does it? While it's true that for each point of damage dealt by Frenzy, you generate additional threat, its high suit power cost and relatively slow channeling time actually cause it to be a weaker choice than Nano Field when it comes to threat generation. This is due to the fact that Nano Field is off the global cooldown and can be stacked on top of your Whiplash spam in order to maximize your damage throughput and subsequently maximize your threat generation. Let's take a look at how this works. Normally, when you use Nano Field, you have the opportunity to deploy the field, wait for up to 5 seconds, and then collapse it. With the Tier 4 bonus, however, Nano Field's second use, destroying the field and returning health to you, becomes free to use if popped within 2 seconds of the initial use, encouraging us to detonate fields faster. If you attempt to simply double tap the ability as quickly as possible, you become animation locked and it takes an inordinate amount of time to empty out your suit power. By using the hold to continue casting option, however, we are able to circumvent these animations and cause the fields to detonate instantly after they are deployed, allowing us to deploy and detonate fields nearly instantaneously without inducing the Nano Field animation. Since this ability is off the global cooldown, we can actually stack it on top of other abilities, such as Whiplash, to maintain constant auto-attack pressure on a target, to build threat and regenerate suit power, while simultaneously dumping our suit power on Nano Fields with no time lost on animations or slow hits. So, while the damage dealt by Nano Field does not receive any additional threat generation modifiers, its ability to be used instantly on top of other skills allows us to push through far more damage in any given time window than if we were using Frenzy instead. For the sake of comparison, here's a side-by-side tanking rotation on a target dummy so we can compare the damage dealt and threat generated over a 2-minute parse. It's worth noting that Galaxy Meter seems to be failing to register any of the Nano Field detonation hits, but immediately we see that Nano Field starts outpacing Frenzy quite rapidly. At the 2-minute mark, I stopped the test and we see that Nano Field spams have about a 40% threat generation lead on Frenzy rotations. Why is this important? Because threat generation is king when it comes to tanking in this game. A properly geared, well-optimized DPS class is really going to put you through your paces as a tank in Wildstar. In general, classes tend to scale better with assault power than with support power, so the deeper into endgame content you go, the more and more you'll struggle to hold aggro on targets, especially in a raid environment where your damage dealers have their damage output heavily buffed. Most people believe that damage mitigation is a tank's top priority, and this simply isn't true. If you can't hold aggro on a target, then it doesn't matter if you can survive all the damage in the world, because the boss you're supposed to be tanking is going on a wild killing spree and murdering your teammates. As such, your number one priority should be on threat generation to ensure that you can hold aggro at all times. Once you are positive that you can outpace the highest damage dealers in your group, then you can start worrying about damage mitigation. Once your healers are comfortable with keeping you alive in every situation, then you can start dialing back on damage mitigation and begin investing in debuffing the target or buffing your group's damage so that you have a more meaningful contribution to fights. But at its core, tanking is about threat generation, and as far as Stalker tanks are concerned, Nano Field is a clear winner. So we've looked at two of the popular tanking abilities for Stalkers. Most people I encounter use Frenzy because on paper, it looks like the more appropriate skill to take into battle with you. It has enhanced threat generation, a strong defensive self-buff, and a powerful offensive debuff that improves the damage output of your group. Through a clever use of game mechanics, however, we see that Frenzy is actually outpaced significantly by Nano Field when it comes to damage throughput, self-sustain, and threat generation. So, when you're setting up your Stalker for tanking endgame content, ask yourself which is more appropriate to bring along. If your threat generation far outpaces your damage dealers, then bring along Frenzy so that you can improve your damage mitigation and help boost the killing speed of your physical damage dealers. If you're struggling to hold aggro, though, take Nano Field to ensure that you can secure aggro and hold onto it at all times throughout a fight. That's all for now, folks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on Nexus.